Reebok has been delighting runners and critics alike with its no-nonsense, affordable daily trainers. And now, it has its sights set on workouts and races. This is the Floatride Energy X. $14.2 miles total for my long run today, with 10 of those miles at marathon effort. A perfect way to test out the new speed shoe from Reebok, the Floatride Energy X. Now, before I give you my thoughts on this shoe after just this first run, I do want to go over some disclosures. Reebok sent me these shoes to review, so I didn't have to pay for them, but they're not paying me to make this video or to use the shoe, and they're not going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Reebok Floatride Energy X, and let's start with some specs. Now, I don't have any stack height information on this shoe, but I do know that it is a 6mm drop, and in this shoe we have two things in this midsole. We have Floatride Energy midsole foam, and we have a 4-foot carbon fiber plate. Now, as far as I can tell, they haven't done anything to change this Floatride Energy midsole compound. So I think it's the same Floatride Energy compound that we've seen in the daily trainers that are using Floatride midsole foam. It's just sculpted slightly differently, and there's just a lot more of it as well. Moving to the outsole, we have an outsole pattern that is very familiar if you've been running in any Reebok shoes lately, but this outsole is a lot thinner than what you'd see in the daily trainers, and there are a lot of cutouts as well to save on additional weight. Moving to the upper, we have a very unique material that I don't think I've ever seen before. This is Reebok's Flex Weave woven textile, and what it does is it provides a very breathable, almost see-through material that feels very strong, but at the same time also kind of feels like a fancy burlap. For the tongue, it is a very minimal tongue, just the tiniest amount of padding in here, and it is gusseted, which helps also create some structure in the midfoot and toe box. There is a little bit of padding in the form of a bumper pad that goes around the back of the shoe, and there is a little bit of structure in terms of rigidity in this heel cup as well. And then there is a little bit of an Achilles flare with some very soft material that lines any part of the shoe that's going to be touching directly onto your ankle. Now, as far as environmental impact of the shoe, the upper is made out of 30% recycled or repurposed material, which is always something that I like to see brands doing in the running shoes. And altogether, this shoe comes in at a stated weight of 9.1 ounces. All right, with those specs out of the way, let's talk about what it was like to run in the shoe. I'll tell you, the first and main sensation that I got from this shoe is that it is very tall. I do like that Reebok Floatride Energy foam that they use in daily trainers, and I was really looking forward to seeing how they were going to tinker with that foam formulation as they put it into a taller stack height shoe. I was really hoping for a little bit more squish, a little bit more deflection in terms of what the foam is doing as my foot's hitting the ground, but I didn't quite get that. I'm still getting a relatively firm ride, which I've always kind of rationalized when I'm talking about the regular Floatride daily training shoes because of the fact that they are a little bit of a lower stack height shoe. But even in this taller stack height setup, it still felt like to me that it was a relatively stiff ride. Now, that doesn't mean that I wasn't able to get up to speed. I think that this shoe definitely is able to run fast. I was able to get to my marathon efforts running at a pace that was faster than what I normally associate with kind of the level of effort that I was putting out. And so I felt like it was an effective speed day shoe. And in a refreshing change, it was a very quiet shoe. Lately, I think we've all been very used to super shoes and other speed day shoes that are extremely noisy, that are slapping the ground with every stride that you're taking. I almost couldn't hear my feet underneath me. Now, when it comes to the carbon fiber plate, I gotta tell you that I didn't really feel the 4-foot carbon. The only time I really felt like I felt the plate is when I moved my foot strike a little bit further back towards the midfoot, and then I felt like as I rolled through the foot strike a little bit more rather than hitting more in the forefoot. If I was rolling, then I would feel that forefoot carbon getting loaded and then springing back as I was pushing off with my stride. But in terms of my everyday normal strike, I felt like I was really just getting a lot of this foam in terms of the sensation that I was getting underfoot. Now, when it comes to absorbing impact, I don't really think that this shoe did that great a job of it. In fact, for me, right around like the 5 or 6 mile mark for the day, or about like 4 miles into the work phase of that 10-mile marathon effort block that I was doing, I was really starting to feel a sharp pain in the right foot. It started out as a little bit of a hot spot and very quickly turned into just discomfort underneath the pads of my right foot, to the extent that I was thinking about, where should I cut this workout short if I needed to do that? Where would that like leave me up like geographically in terms of distance from my house if I wanted to cut the workout short? I ended up being able to complete the workout, but it just was something that I was thinking about, and by the end of the workout, my right foot was definitely hurting me quite a bit. And I think there's a couple of reasons why it was doing that. One is because the foam just doesn't compress enough for me. And the other part of it is there is a very significant and aggressive rocker on this shoe. And the rocker is kind of like a fulcrum at the forefoot of the shoe. So instead of this whole toe part of the shoe touching the ground, the shoe curls up in a geometry that as your foot is rolling through the foot strike, instead of having to fight against a lot of material, it just rolls because the shoe is curled already. It's very aggressive in this shoe. And the way that the foam is shaped, it really felt like I wasn't just sitting on a fulcrum like this. I also felt like there was almost a very small, narrow platform on this otherwise very wide shoe that my foot was sitting on. And if I didn't hit it exactly right in terms of when my foot hit the ground, I felt like there was a lot of room for the shoe to roll to one side or the other, or for it to kind of like roll through the gait cycle instead of forward, just in this rocker motion, forward and to a side. So I just felt like I was really landing on a very small focused point, and that in turn was sending a lot of impact up through the foot in that way. And it's a shame because this shoe is pretty wide and it looks like it could be a very stable shoe for a lot of runners. And I think that if you are a midfoot striker, you're definitely going to feel that stability. But for me, for someone whose foot hits the ground a little bit more towards the front, it just made it feel like there was a lot of shoe here, but not a lot of stability benefit from having all that width. And just overall, I felt like the shoe was very hard on the body, or wasn't very forgiving on the body. One of the things that you frequently hear discussed when we're talking about carbon-plated super shoes is that not only are they great to race in because they help you run faster times, but they're also really great to help you recover quickly because they're not as hard on the body. And that's something that I definitely didn't experience with this shoe. Doing a long-ish run with a 10-mile block of marathon effort miles in there is a pretty normal workout for me to do on the weekend. And usually the following day, I can either hop on the bike or I can get out there for a recovery run because I'm a 7-day-a-week runner. But I felt like I needed to take a complete rest day after this run in the Floatride Energy X. And then the second day after the run, I still felt like my body was feeling the effects of that run 2 days prior, which is not something that I kind of normally encounter anymore, because I feel like shoes in this category have gotten so good at not only helping you feel fast while you're running, but also helping you avoid taking too much of a beating while you're getting those workouts in. So that was another major thing that I felt like was really missing from this shoe in terms of it being a racing shoe or a workout shoe. Now, going into this review, I thought that based on the way that this outsole looks, that the shoe that I was gonna feel like this was the most similar to would have been the Carbon X3. But it turns out, because of the way that the rocker is and the way that the foam is deflecting and how I feel like there's a very kind of smaller like interior footprint that I need to work within, regardless of how wide the shoe appears to be. It also reminded me quite a bit of the Nike Zoom Fly 3, which was a shoe that I felt like I could run fast in, but it was a little bit on the heavy side, and it definitely also sent some pains up through the pads of my foot on certain longer runs. So I felt like I was getting a lot of deja vu. This shoe comes in at a price of $170, which if this is going to be your carbon plated racer, that's really quite a bargain and fits very well in kind of like the Reebok kind of positioning where it's giving very reasonable prices and over delivering in terms of what they're giving you in the run experience for that price. And had this been a race caliber shoe, I think that 170 price point really would have been it. But I just think that with the firmness of this, unless you are a runner who is bigger or taller than I am and who normally finds other race day super shoes to just be way too squishy for your comfort, the Reebok Floatride Energy X might be the perfect shoe for them because of the way that this foam compresses, or from my perspective, the way that the foam doesn't compress enough. But for a lot of you out there, I'm just not sure that I can recommend this shoe at $170 when there's other kind of like workout speed day shoes that you could also use for racing that I think could fit in the same kind of use case as this shoe, but to do it in a way that I find to be a lot easier on the feet, a little bit more fun, and are also at a better price. I really wanted to love this shoe. I love what Reebok has been doing, and it's a brand that I'm definitely rooting for, but this one just isn't the one for me. If you have any other questions about this shoe though, feel free to put them in the comments down below, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube, and I'd love to talk to you guys in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are being safe out there on your runs, and I will see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?